I have a granddaughter that's 9. She's never seen me take a drink of alcohol in her life. The first time she saw me with a bottle of like zero proof wines, she's like, "Oh, JoJo, is that the non-alcoholic alcohol?" And so she got it. And she's going to grow up in a household where she sees us drink that, and she probably will drink it when she gets older, and she will never have tasted real alcohol. And so hopefully that she'll grow up, like embracing the zero proof movement also.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Stacking Days podcast. This is episode 32, part 2 of a 2-part conversation with our guest, Joe. I had mentioned last week that I had the good fortune of going to Kenya and spending 10 days on a sober sojourn with a handful of other Black and brown folks. Joe happened to be one of them. We sat down and had an in-person conversation around her journey with alcohol and sobriety. And we wanted to bring the second part of that conversation to you this week. So if you hadn't had an opportunity to catch the first part, please go back and listen to episode 31, where Joe really starts from her childhood all the way through to her finding her sobriety. And then in part 2 of this conversation, we're going to be talking about more of that bridge between her addiction and sobriety and all of the fantastic things that she's doing today as a leader in her community, as an entrepreneur, as the owner and operator of an award-winning restaurant in Texas. So hope you guys sit back, enjoy this second part to our conversation. Again, caveat, the audio quality was a little bit off. As I mentioned last week, we were recording this in the middle of Kenya. So I do apologize, but I didn't want to hold this conversation back from being released into the world, because I think that we can all learn quite a bit from Joe's resiliency. So for that matter, sit back, relax, enjoy the conversation, and as always, continue to be well on your own journey. Peace.
During that time, narcissism, constant. It was very bad for my mental health. About 2 years into it, I was ready to walk away, and he left.
From the restaurant or from him?
Both.
Yeah.
Both. From him, and I couldn't figure out how do I keep the restaurant. I'm so proud of myself that during this whole time when things were so toxic, and there's a lot of toxicity that I don't want to talk about, just because it was, if you have ever been in a relationship with a narcissist, you already know what I'm going to say. How they tell you that you're no good, and, they make you think that you're crazy and all that kind of stuff. Like, I had to go through that all the time. And, but I did not want to give up my restaurant, but never, ever, ever did I think about drinking during that time.
I was going to ask you, because the narcissism that I hear sounds a lot like previous relationships that you had been in, and I'm surprised that it didn't trigger something in you to say, like, okay, there are a lot of like similarities here, and I don't want to devolve necessarily back into who I was.
Yeah, I never. It's like literally the obsession or the idea that drinking was even an option in my life I had already experienced that. Like, you do it, and you'd be right back where you were. And I keep this very vivid memory in my head about that day that I'm sitting, and I'm telling you earlier, I'm sitting at that park and I'm drinking that wine, and I'm so sad, and I'm so lonesome, and I'm so unhappy, and say to myself, man, I lived in this great neighborhood, it was my dream neighborhood, and here I am. So I can I bring that picture to the front of my face all the time and say, remember that? Remember what that looks like? Remember that time that you had the DTs? Remember how bad that was? Those things. And is it worth it? And
do you still have to do it today? No?
No, never. No, never. And so we'll move forward a little bit more. So 4 years, he has knee surgery, and so he's out, he's not helping out at the restaurant, and I'm kind of left with the restaurant by myself. And I was kind of at this point, he had been so busy, mean. There's a lot of things that happened with our employees, and it was just so toxic. And I was picking him up from his knee rehab thing, and he gets in the car and he just starts on me saying whatever it was, oh, you're so stupid, or how come this or whatever? Did you do this? Did you do that? And he said something to me, and I can't even remember what it was. He's like, "Oh, you think you're so smart, huh?" Like, and that wasn't even like a big deal. But I just looked over at him and I said, "Oh, wow, this is it. This is the end of the road." And he said, "What does that mean?" And I said, "It's over. Me in the restaurant, it's over. I'm going to drive us home, and you can get out of the car, and then I'm going to get my car, and then in 30 days, I'm out of here." And he said, "You can't just go like that." And I was like, I'm leaving. You need to figure out how you're going to pay me for my part of the restaurant, 'cause I am leaving. Period. End of story. 30 days from now. And so we go home, and he won't talk to me. And I'm like, what did I just do?
Where did that come from?
I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. It was like the same thing with alcohol, except I was abusing myself by being with him. It was the same thing, like the pattern, like we have these patterns that we built inside of ourselves. And sometimes it's not just alcohol. We become addicted to other things. I was addicted to this person being mean to me, or thinking that I could never have my dream again if I walked away from this dream, like I couldn't. And so 30 days later, I left, and there was a lot of, between that 30 days and another 60 days, there was a lot of negotiation. And then at one point, he tore the door off my car, and then there's no more negotiation because you're being a real creep. So either you give me this money, or, like I'm taking you to court. So he wound up giving me the money that I asked for at the end. And then we went our separate ways, and I'm devastated. I'm moving back to Austin. I lose my barbecue restaurant.
Right.
Yeah, like I'm moving, and I'm back to Austin. I'm by myself.
But you're still intact, right?
I was. I mean, I still had a great job. I still had my clients. I come back to Austin, and literally, like, the wheels come off in a great way. Like, I don't know what happened. I wound up starting up another barbecue concept. I gained so much cred by walking away in the barbecue community because people knew what it was like. And people reached out to me, and they really had my back. And so I felt sad because I lost my relationship and I lost my restaurant. And I thought, like, I'm never going to be in barbecue again. And that was like my whole heart. And so I get back to Austin, COVID happens. We all know where this leads. 2 years, trying to open up this other barbecue thing. It doesn't happen. And so I'm at my other friend's barbecue place, and I had only worked on like this one kind of smoker, and it's called the Oiler. If you don't know what that means, it's a rotisserie smoker. So it's kind of like they call it the cheat smoker, because you just put your food in there, turn on the temperature, and you come back in a few hours. Not a few, 14 hours, and the meat's done. Sure. So I'm using a traditional smoker, which requires a lot more care, and I have to learn how to do this. And some guys come up, and I'm at my friend's barbecue place, and they're like, "Joe, what are you doing here?" I'm like, "Oh, Kyle teach me how to, smoke meat." And they're like, "But you what?" And I was like, "I know, but like I never had this kind of smoker before." And they're like, "Oh, we're gonna come to your place, your new barbecue place." And I was like, "You can't, because it's already like it's not happening." That my partner, he just, his family needed him, and he needed to be doing barbecues. And so they're like, "So what are you gonna do?" And I'm like, "I don't know." And they're like, "Well, like if you had like whatever, what would you do?" And I said, I wouldn't work with men anymore. So I would work with a girl. I want to still stay in barbecue. I have a smoker. I need somebody who knows how to do this already. I do not want to train anybody. I don't want to teach them how to do barbecue. I want somebody who's already in the biz, that's hungry, and that wants to make this a career for them. And I would gift them my smoker, and then like help them financially to get started up. And they're like, "Hey, do you know Barbecue Rap on Instagram?" And I was like, "I've never heard of this person." And they're like, "Well, you should reach out to her because she's trying to move back to Boston." So I just do this, the thing I always do, because everything I do it scared, because I'm literally scared all the time. So I say, and Chuck, her name is Chuck. "Hey, you don't know me, but somebody gave me your name today and said that you're trying to move back to Austin. I have a smoker. Like I know this is like out of left field because you don't know who I am at all. But like if you want it, like I'm down to talk to you about it." like how we could collaborate. She doesn't reach out to me for like another 3 days. And then she finally does. She's like, hey, I've been talking to a bunch of people and you're legit. They're like, you don't jump on this opportunity to work with you because you've been in the business for a while. Then, she said, I'd love to meet you. So she comes to meet me in Austin the next week. We connected immediately. And then I'm just like, okay, so what do we do next? She's like, I don't know. And I said, I don't know either. Here we are, two people we don't know. Fast forward to a year and a half later, several pop-ups, a lot of fanfare because she said, hey, I want to have my friends that I care about. I want them to, like, I have an angle for how this looks. And they had all come
to be
from
a part of the business.
Yeah, they had all come from, and this is the story because and it's Barb's the Q. So if you read the story, you'll know. So it's like, I'm not going to try to hide anything, but they'd all work for some pitmasters, a very famous pitmaster in Austin. And during their tenure, they were treated horribly. And then they were, and it's not typical in the barbecue industry, I'm not going to say, but, in the past it was kind of like it's a male dominated field and there's not very many women that are in barbecue that are actually creating the meat, like the brisket pitmasters. So it was really important for her to bring along her friends to do, like, they wanted to show the guys that they can do it, like the girls can do it. And I got it because I had to walk away. I fought the same battle those girls are. Unfortunately, I had to walk away from them. Like, they don't have to walk away. They can start here fresh and we can create something new that is different.
Yeah.
So we decided we're going to do something. She's like, I want my friends. I said, however it looks like, I'm not going to let you run with it. You just tell me what you need from me. I'm here to help you recipe create, whatever, invest, whatever. I'm just here as like a mentor. And then the girls, we have pop-ups. And we get lots of media attention. And then she's like, she wants to open a restaurant in Lockhart. And if you don't, not from Texas and you don't know, Lockhart's the barbecue capital of Texas. And the 4 or 5 big families that create barbecue in Texas are in Lockhart. And it's a male dominated. And then part of my team is I have one of the girls is queer and another girl is a cancer survivor at under 30. And then I have a girl that's in transition. So it's a very unique set of people.
How does the legacy, the barbecue families, how do they view these new entrants, this like motley crew of women who've now come to town to like take over?
They're okay with us.
Okay.
They're okay with us.
Well, they're probably getting some like residual press.
We're getting residual, like they're like, so it's kind of like symbiotic relationship because, like there's the regulars that come to town for, like the barbecue that's in Lockhart. And now we're one of those barbecue in Lockhart. So we get that. But we are unique. We do a vegan night. So we have vegan barbecue, which is pretty, like there's a few people that are doing some stuff like that, but not really. So, and then the press that we've gotten has just been outrageous. Like literally we're on, like every single food, whatever. There's always people at our restaurant that are, that are taking pictures and telling our story. Beautiful part today is that we were named one of the top 12 new restaurants in the United States by Eater. And we're the only barbecue place. And
huge.
I'm just completely overwhelmed. And
well, let's stop right there because what does that mean for you? I mean, we've now all heard the full story, right? From where you've come from, all of the lows that you've experienced, and now you've come together in this like serendipitous moment with these other 3 individuals. You've created this, this locale that people are coming to, and you and your team are being recognized as being one of the best in the country. Mm-hmm. Like, what does that mean? I mean, I know you just found out tonight.
Like my heart is beating so fast when you just said that. That's making my heart beat so fast because, 11 years ago, I did not have any hope for me. I did not have any hope that I could stop drinking. I did not think that 11 years later, fast forward, I did not think that I would ever have the opportunities I have, but 100 million% without a doubt, every single bit of it is because of sobriety. every single bit of it is because of sobriety, because I could not have done that in the state that I'd been for such a long time. Drinking, I'm focused, like I'm able to do the things that I want to do. And like they said in AA, if you live right, you stay sober, like the blessings will keep on coming. My blessings fucking never stop. It is insane. And every single time one of those things happens to me again, I always say to myself, you did the work, Joe, so you got to remember that. But I always go back to that, hearing that the blessings will continue to come. And that's why I will never put, alcohol in my mouth again, because the blessings will stop. And I'm not ready. I'm not willing to risk that right now, because my life is so amazing. So amazing. And it all, like, and the respect my girls have for me. Like,
I was going to ask you, do they know the story? Do they know? They must.
Yeah,
I mean, you had business partners. So I'm assuming.
They do. They're and they're such sweet young ladies. The fact that I get to be like a mentor to them. I'm teaching these girls because I'm an accountant, so I have like a business background, and that's where my strong suit is. And so what I've done is these girls have this is their business. I'm here to support them and to show them like how to pay sales tax, like how to do payroll, how to look at food costs, things that a lot of people who get in the restaurant business will never have the opportunity to have somebody who came before them that would teach them those kind of things.
And fail because of the lack of knowledge.
Correct. And so I feel like they're on such a good foot. And also they're super like responsive to the fact that I don't drink. And so we get into the zero proof stuff because it's important. After I left Blackboard, I decided and came back to Austin, I decided, I'm going to be a serial entrepreneur. I'm going to do a lot of things. One of the things I did was create a mental health nonprofit. It's called A Safe Place Inside Your Head. And it's in honor of my son who passed. And it started out to be like suicide awareness. And we started out with this, not a meme account, but like it was kind of like, back then you could do this, now you can't. So back then you could just post like, because I'm, like glass half full. So I would post like a lot of really positive affirmation kind of stuff on our page. And then we had a private group on Facebook, and it was small. And then we started inviting our friends, and it grew like organically. We didn't even know how it did, but where people were allowed to come into this private group and say, hey, I have bipolar disorder. My doctor just prescribed Wellbutrin to me. Has anybody experienced it? Like, what does it look like for you? Or when I wake up in the morning, I'm sad. And, what are the things that you do to get yourself out of being sad? Like, whatever it was. Right. But it was a private space. And this was right before COVID happened, like literally before COVID, 2 months before COVID happened. We started this Instagram and Facebook account. And one of my sons, he's no longer involved because he's off of social media because it's too toxic for him. And this is the point in his life where he just doesn't want to be on social media. So we start this account, and it grows like fast, and we can't figure out why. We don't have we're not paying for subscribers or anything like that. And within a year, we went from 0 to 100,000 people on Instagram. And we started deciding to do this where we became very transparent and would tell our story in our captions on our posts. So saying this is about an eating disorder. I remember when I was 13, 15, that I would, do my friends throwing up in the bathroom. Like, we became very transparent, and we're telling our stories. And people really resonated with that. This was 4 years ago before COVID, or 3 years ago before COVID happened. And so and then COVID happened, and then the account just grew really fast. Today, the account has 730,000 followers, and it's just me, and then I have some people that I work with that are mental health professionals, or they are coaches, and then they will do what we call takeovers for the day, and I'll let them run their full program so that they can talk about different genres of things, like a boundaries coach, like somebody who's, if you've grown up with narcissistic parents, so that
you're covering the full
gamut. And we talk about suicide a lot because that's pretty important. And as you know, I had some terrible news 2 days ago where one of the people who worked for me at Blackboard Barbecue, my first barbecue restaurant, he completed suicide, and he was only 23 years old. So this is kind of all fresh for me right now, and how important the mental health side is. And I got to say that I think also being able to speak about my mental health issues, addiction being one of them, in an open forum like Instagram was absolutely like therapy for me. Like a lot of times when I write these posts, I write them for me, like somebody resonates with it. That's even better. But most of the time, if you want to know how I'm feeling, just go to Safe Place Inside Your Head and then look for the post that I've made because I signed my post. And then know like where my head and my heart's at. And that has been an incredible ride. So that's part of what I've done in the last few years. I'm always looking to better myself. And now that I have, like, my mind is expanded and I'm able to do a lot of different things. And how do I make myself a better person besides just the not drinking? Like, there's so many other things about me that are important. I'm a somatic breathwork coach and licensed for that. I'm a real estate agent. I have a client that has like 10 different businesses that I work with him on the accounting stuff. I'm also an NLP certified coach. So I work with neurolinguistic programming, which is a way to retrain your brain on how you think. So I have.
How do you find the time to do all this thing? I mean, and I'm sure
you see me here.
I know in
Africa working and playing the whole time.
Yeah.
So I don't
find it, but how do you intentionally find it? Because you don't seem to be the type of person at this point in your life that just stumbles into what you do, right? Like it sounds as though.
Yeah, I always make strong decisions.
Right. So how do you go ahead and make sure that you're finding the time to do all those things at a high level?
I don't know. I mean, it works for me. And then if things get to be too much, then I've also learned, man, it's been great. I learned to say no. So then segue into that is that a little bit over a year in August of last year, went to Chicago, spend many years not drinking, still not drinking. And then I go to Chicago with a friend of mine and we go to sit in a champagne bar because she wants to have a glass of champagne and we're going to eat oysters, popcorn. And the girl walks up to us and I order sparkling water because that's really all there's available for me. So she says, "How is everything?" And I said, "Oh, this is great. The food is amazing. It would be super cool though if there was such a thing as, like some sparkling wine or champagne that was, didn't have alcohol in it, but tasted because, there's at that time, there's a year and a half ago, like the market is just like juices that are carbonated, whatever."
Yeah.
And she says, "Hold on a second." And she goes to the back and she comes back and she sets down a bottle and it's a bottle of Lights, Leitz, sparkling rosé. I'm like, "What's that?" She's like, it's a 0 proof wine." I was like, "What does that mean?" And she's like, "Well, it's like, it doesn't have any alcohol in it." And I was like, "Oh, I'm game," and it never went through my head that like, what if I taste this and I get triggered? It just never went through my head that would be the case. So she pours it. I take a sip of it. And I look at her and I'm like, "Give me that bottle again." So I take that bottle, I look at it and it says, it's 0.5, whatever. And I said, "How could this be? Like, this tastes exactly like how I remember wine was 10 years ago, right? How could this be? Like, I'm pretty happy right now." And because I'm a serial entrepreneur, I looked up immediately on my phone that brand and I went straight to websites and started asking people, could I buy it from them wholesale? And that day I became a champion in the 0 proof alcohol business. Like, I went home, I ordered cases of wine, and anybody who would listen to me, I made them drink it and taste it. And then I planned my first event in January, during Dry January. And it didn't happen because there was a lot of like logistics that didn't make it happen.
21? Is this 21? 22.
It was 22 last year.
Okay.
And so I, no, it was 20.
23?
It was 23.
Okay.
Yeah. So I have this event and it's a bubbles and oysters. And about 100 people show up. It was pretty cool. And that was the first time that I had spoken to people, started learning about what, because I'm like a wino. So to me, that part is really important. Losing the ability to ever drink wine again, although it wasn't devastating, I never thought it was an option for me again. But I remember that feeling when I took that first drink of that non-alcoholic alcohol, that it made me feel inside exactly how alcohol made me feel, but in a good way. There'd been so many times that I tell people, I really love the taste of wine. And they'd be like, "I just like it because it gets you loopy."
Right.
And when I tasted that wine, I really liked the taste of that wine. And the fact that there was no like side effect of me getting drunk and in my mind again. It was like this is what if I had this 30 years ago, I might have never been an alcoholic because I would have been, the feeling is, I feel okay. I feel great. And so then I started investigating more wines and, as a business model. So now I have a pop-up, bottle shop. It's on the internet, but one of the things I love to do more than anything is to show up at events where there's alcohol, and then I bring the non-alcohol option and I talk to people about the process and like the different health benefits and the calories and sugar and all of those things, and have people experience these wines for the very first time. And it doesn't have to do with sobriety for most people. Like this sober curious it's not just about it's not about addiction is the big, I don't want people to feel like uncomfortable around me because of the fact that I was a true addict, but that if they want to drink less, maybe stop drinking, maybe just not drink for that day or that drink, that I'm in full support and I can be there to show them how that works.
Yeah.
And so that part has been pretty amazing for me, is the education piece of it. Yeah. As a business model, it's in its infancy, for all of us who are doing stuff like this, because, we're just 1 year into the sober movement.
Yeah.
And it's only going to get bigger and better. And, I just want to preach about how wonderful this is for anybody who doesn't want to drink or drink as much. It's an amazing experience.
Yeah. As folks guests walk through the property because we're out in the open, Joe and I have been geeking a little bit over the last couple of days talking about a lot of NA, and maybe we'll get some of your suggestions at some point, and I'll put them in the show notes so people can get some ideas.
Yeah, I have some.
We'll, if you're just a new entrant into that space, what are the go-tos that you would suggest someone take a look at?
I got them lined up. So if you like Sauvignon Blanc, Gießen, Geisen, their Sauvignon Blanc is hands down probably the best Sauvignon Blancs of all of the ones on the market. It has that fruity apple pear brightness. I've had winemakers that have tasted it with me, closed eyes, and said, I would absolutely think this is a wine. So let's go back. They are wine.
Yeah.
100% they're wine. There's two classifications, the ones that are non-alcohol, which have never seen the light of day of a fermentation process. And then there's wines. So they are wines where they're usually spun, and then the alcohol is separated from the beautiful juice.
Right.
And then there's a little heat applied to it, kind of like when you're cooking and the alcohol evaporates, and then you have this 0.05 product. So you still have the beautiful deliciousness of that wine, but you just don't have the effects of the alcohol. So Gießen, Sauvignon Blanc, 100%. I'm going to say for a sparkling rosé, Oddbird, it's a little bit more expensive than the others, but you open that bottle and you smell that yeasty deliciousness that you would smell in a regular champagne, and it has the mouthfeel of a regular champagne. That one's killer. And then I like Oddbird's GSM, which is their Grenache Syrah Mourvedre. Sometimes red wines will have the tendency to be a little sweeter, and it's because the tannins are gone, and so the beautiful juice sweetness is still up there. So some people will say, "Oh, this tastes too much like grape juice for me," or "It's too sweet for me." Oddbird doesn't have that. Oddbird is it's a really mellow. Lights has a Pinot Noir that is not it's not full on if you're expecting for that that peppery that peppery smoky flavor. You're not going to get it, but it's still a really delicious tasting wine. And then Naughty makes a red that's just mouthfuls of fruit and just jammy, delicious flavor. So those are my hot picks.
Wow. I love the hot pick.
Yeah, on the wines. The ones I drink pretty much almost on the daily are going to be the Gießen and then the Naughty, because I really love the Naughty. It's just.
I haven't tried the Naughty yet, but I'm fine.
It reminds me. So I would say try it at Thanksgiving because it reminds me of Beaujolais. So it has that feel and in flavor of Beaujolais. My sister's in recovery 20 years. And then she was at first afraid to try wines. And then I introduced her to a couple of them. And now she's
Yeah, I was going to ask you, for people who are just like not really sure, you know, how an NA wine, NA beverage is going to mesh with their intention and their lifestyle of sobriety. What, I guess it's different for everyone, right? I think
oh yeah, everybody has a different story, and that's like the first thing I want to hear is like, why are you not drinking today?
Yeah.
You know, like, what's your reason? And when they tell me, you know, then that's when I'm able to say, like, move the conversation in that direction, because it doesn't. Most of the people that I talk to, they're not alcoholics. They just have decided that they want to drink less,
right,
or maybe not at all, or they didn't realize that there was an option. And that's the beauty of it, is to introduce people to the fact that there is an option. I have a granddaughter that's 9. She's never seen me take a drink of alcohol in her life. The first time she saw me with a bottle of like 0 proof wines, she's like, "Oh, JoJo, is that the non-alcoholic alcohol?" And so she got it. And she's going to grow up in a household where she sees us drink that, and she probably will drink it when she gets older, you know, and she will never have tasted real alcohol. And so hopefully that she'll grow up, you know, like embracing the 0 proof movement also.
I mean, and also doesn't have to live by the same stigmas that that a lot of other older generations have had to, right? But I feel like, being in social gatherings, not feeling the pressure to have to drink alcohol because it wasn't shown to be like okay necessarily value.
And so she'll never grow up that way, like,
Awesome.
because she's only seen sober people. She doesn't know.
So you're now 11 years sober. Your sister is
20
years sober.
Mhm.
Was your mother ever a drinker?
Yeah.
Okay. Because I don't think you had mentioned that earlier, but it sounded like your mom had her own fair share of trauma that she had to figure out a way to work through that maybe she never did.
Yeah, she I don't know what that was, but she did drink. And my kids remember, like my boys remember her as a drinker. And so they would always say, "Yeah, my grandma used to like sit on the couch drinking her wine." Like, that's the things they remember. And it's just like the conversation we were having on the boat yesterday here is about how we're really changing the narrative. Like like us. Like, you're not my generation because I'm way older than you, but we're changing the narrative where our children will never have to tell stories like the ones that I'm telling today.
Yeah.
Because we're so lucky that we live in a day and age that we have options, and that we can also like be open and transparent and vulnerable and be able to talk about the things that made like me want to drink that I never had the opportunity. So like drinking is, like putting that emotion in check, for sure, which is absolutely not what it does, because then you wound up being a loudmouth. You know what I'm saying? Or saying something, the wrong thing at the wrong time. So what we were intentionally doing was thinking that it was going to help us, like solve the problem. It actually
exasperated
the problem. Yeah. So, I mean, every day I wake up and I don't think about drinking. Now that I have my 0 proof wine, sometimes I think about like, oh, I can't wait till I get home and I get that glass of Sauvignon Blanc. Like, I've been here for 10 days and I've had no wine. So obviously it's not a problem, because I haven't even thought about it the whole time I'm here. But because I always worry about that too. Like, what if I just traded one crutch for another, except for that there's no alcohol. So I still have to deal with everything, like I don't get to just hide away from it. I'm just doing it. The placebo effect works for me. For some people, it might not work. But
I think it's also the recognition too, right? Like understanding like where you're at and why you're doing what you're doing. Mm-hmm. Whereas when you're in like the mode of like drinking alcohol, you don't have that luxury of understanding what the hell's going on. It's completely taken over. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And at least in my experience of drinking NA, you still have your clarity. You still have your perspective.
You do.
You still have your agency. All of those things that you need in order to be like a full functioning human being. And you can decide at any point in time, I'm going to go on vacation in Kenya for 10 days and I don't have to drink anything and not worry about it.
It's
right?
insane.
Couple questions that I have as we kind of like take the plane in here to bring it in for a landing. One, for some people, it could be a fastball. For you, I don't think it will be. And the other one is pretty straightforward. So, harder question, easier question. Which would you like first?
I'd like to take the hard step first.
Cool. In the days when you were at your lowest point, um, how would people around you have known that you're struggling without you telling them explicitly?
I mean, I think what my family saw was the hiding. And so I thought I was hiding,
Mhm.
and they knew that I was hiding. So that was like a big thing to them, was that, like, we know you're drinking. You can't say you're not drinking. Like, we can smell it on you,
Right.
those kind of things. So I think that was the big
Hiding, the overt denial.
Yeah, and like when I was actually drinking, people could smell it on me, like that they didn't notice, and when in fact they did notice. But nobody was ever like, except for my son, who said, "You're not going to get to see your granddaughter," which was the big. I think that was probably one of the biggest things, but you know, everybody else was just like, I mean, there's also, because I had that situation where my son had just died, like, and I was at my heaviest drinking, like nobody was going to try to reel me in.
Yeah.
Like, and I wish they had. I wish that they had done it earlier. I wish that somebody had reached out to me. But it happens exactly like it's supposed to happen. The exact timing. I would not change the way anything, except, like my son, although he was so troubled, and like his life was, for him, he had been in an accident. He was going to have chronic pain the rest of his life and have to be on Oxycontin. I don't want my child to live that way, and he didn't want to live that way either. So I would never change the way, because that path after recovery has been, I just look back and I'm just like, man, every single minute of this has been worth it. Every single minute. So.
I'd be remiss if I, and it's not usually a question that I have, but I mean, suicide oftentimes is a byproduct of a lot of the mental health issues that we have. It manifests itself for some through, addiction to alcohol. Are there resources that you tend to turn people towards who may be, battling with, suicidal thoughts, or a loved one that they may be concerned with? I know that you've been in this space much longer than
Yeah, I do. I think this is what I feel. I think, and every case is different, but what I found that I'm able to do, and especially when I can reach out to mothers who have children that are going through this thing, is to ask them to just make sure that they let their child know that they're always there for them. Like, and however that looks, and then one of the questions I always ask when people reach out to me, because on Safe Place, people do reach out all the time on DM, and they're like, I don't feel like I can do this any longer. And so the biggest question to say to somebody is, it's like, do you really want to die, or do you just not want to live the way that you live right now? And if they say no, if they say adamantly, yes, I want to die, and then you say, why? And then because I believe that we are all here to help each other, and so they should absolutely get a therapist. I 100% agree that everybody, like, one of the first questions I always ask is, are you seeing anybody to help you with these problems? And it doesn't, like, it could be like it doesn't have to be like a full-on psychiatrist and go sit in the office every day. It could be 30-minute Zoom. There's so many different apps that you can get that on. Or you could just have a good friend that you could just reach out to all the time. I have a mentor that I reach out to. She just listens to me every 2 weeks, 30 minutes at her time, and I just, whatever. And then she says, do you want me to help you, or do you just listen? Any kind of way that you can communicate with somebody else about your feelings to get them out is so important. And if you can't afford therapy, find a good friend, or, see if you can sign up for, to get on a waiting list for it, and then just kind of like follow some of these. I know a lot of people might disagree with me. Follow some of these Instagram accounts. There's a lot of good information that we have access to, like breathing techniques and, like anything. And just seeing that somebody else is experiencing the same thing that you are, and and knowing, oh, here's my comrade, here's my friend that I could, like I could watch them on Instagram. You should always have human connection because that's really important. And that's what I'm saying, is you should find somebody that you can talk to. But like I've talked to a few moms that were able to get their child into like a mental health facility to help save them. And I'm always here, like if somebody says, I want to get in rehab, I obviously can't pay for that, but I have connections where I can help people, like I can call up some people and say, I've got somebody who needs to get into a program. What can you do to help me? Where can you point me in that direction to be able to get people help? But I think the human connection part is the most important part, is to try to get somebody out of that space where they're in like suicidal. But I also believe that there's like, there's some times we just can't fix that. And my son was one of them. Like I don't have a bad feeling. I mean, I've never felt bad about his death. I felt sad because I selfishly want him around. But I also know that, like to know that my son is no longer in pain and that he's released from this worldly pain that he had is, I mean, unselfishly, I have to say that I'm okay with that. And, also it gave me the opportunity to learn. It gave me the opportunity to get sober. Because I said to myself, part of that is I got to learn how to handle grief, and I can't do it while I'm, three sheets to the wind all the time. I'll never be able to do that.
Similar question, same vein. For someone who's sitting there, maybe listening to this, watching this, and has identified they got an issue that they want to address, they don't know what to do, what their first step would be, what would you suggest to them?
To stop drinking.
Yep.
I mean, you could try name meeting. You can, there's lots of other kind of things all around too. You could try name meeting. Ask somebody for help. Ask somebody for help. Reach out and say to somebody, hey man, I'm suffering. I need some help. And then, like, hopefully you'll be put, not hopefully, you should be put in the path of, especially if it's somebody that you trust. I think I would but I would look out in my sphere of people and say, who do I want to be like? Like who could help me the most, and then reach out to that person and then do it scared. And then, like if you're so willing, Spirit's going to see that and connect you with what you need to do to make those things to move forward. And remember that it's an everyday battle, and sometimes you're gonna fail.
Yeah. But it's worth it
though. The failing is the fail up is for me it's the greatest thing. But I can't like whenever that first happened and I tasted that 0 proof wine, and I thought to myself, this is weird because now I'm going to be talking to people about the thing that like I stopped doing, and this is where I can help other people. Like it's so ironic that like if I want for people to stop drinking as much, I could say try this, and then perhaps they won't have to have the experience that I had to have, becoming an alcoholic. That we live in a day and age where it's just mind blowing. It's just mind blowing and ironic, but I'm grateful to be part of that today. And I just can't wait to see what that looks like in the future. And, like cigarettes, now people don't smoke as much. I guarantee you in the next few years, we'll see the rate of those kind of things also happen.
Well, hopefully we're at the tip of the iceberg here.
I hope so. Yeah.
Well, look, Joe, thank you so much for spending some time with me. I know that you and I have more time together. You guys are not going to be able to see it, but we have another day together. But it's been fantastic. I really appreciate getting a chance to hear your entire story. I mean, I've heard snippets of it. I'm sure there's more.
There was so much. Like I was going through, and I was like, "Oh, I forgot that." That's why I had to go back and important, about my son. But I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to talk about it. And then, I think you're going to put in the links, you're going to put in the comments or whatever section, like how you could reach out to me.
Well, I wanted you to, if you could let us know explicitly where people could find you, that would be helpful, not just for me to put in the notes, but I think audibly as well.
Sure. So, you can reach me either on my personal page The Real Joe Irizarry, and it's Joirizarry on Instagram. Instagram is my jam. So if you're going to find me, you're going to find me on Instagram. Then I have the Zero Proof pop-up bottle shop. It's a lot, but if you start typing in Zero Proof pop-up, the bottle shop will come up. That's where I actually have an online store where I carry a lot of the product that I've talked about here. And then also if somebody wants to book me for an event, you can reach me through there. And then a safe place inside your head is the mental health page. And I do answer the DMs. So if you have I never turn anybody away who just wants to talk for a second on the DM. I'm not a mental health professional, so I cannot resolve those issues for you, but I'm always willing to hear so that you can make sure that you feel seen. So
awesome. Joe, thank you. You're fantastic.
Thank you.
All right. I know. How cool is that? All right. Well, we'll catch you guys next time on the Stacking Days. Thanks for tuning into this episode. Okay.
Hey guys, if you've made it this far, then that means that you've made it through 2 parts of a really invigorating and motivating conversation that I had with Joe in Kenya a few weeks ago. I will say that, anytime I get an opportunity to sit down and chat with folks about the journey that they've been on, I'm always in awe when it comes to how far they've had to come to get to where they are. And, Joe was someone who was full of light, full of energy, even though she had experienced so much pain in her life. So I just want to, once again, acknowledge, how grateful I am to her and to all the guests who come on to the Stacking Days podcast to share. Anyways, tune in next week as we have another live video, or rather in-person video recording with someone else who I was traveling with in Kenya. I think it will be equally as compelling. I've certainly listened to the conversation multiple times over, and keep finding tidbits that I can use along my own path. So look forward to seeing you guys next week, and until then, be well one day at a time. I appreciate you guys listening to the Stacking Days podcast. I hope this episode added value to your recovery and wellness journey. Before we go our separate ways, let's connect on social. You can find us on TikTok and Instagram at Stacking Days, or via the website www.stackingdays.com. By supporting the show, you can play a direct role in amplifying people of color in their pursuit of recovery. The easiest way to do that is to subscribe or hit the follow button. This way, you'll never miss an episode, all while playing an active part in creating the ecosystem where diverse voices in healing matter. This show is for the purpose of education and connection, and is not a replacement for therapy or recovery care. For more information on the resources and support available, take a look at SAMHSA and some other resources shared in the description. Until we meet again, be well, one day at a time.